another 1,000 employees got laid off from um from developing Fortnite, which is, for me, that's shocking because, for me, Fortnite has always been the golden child. That chose the Anakin, the Anakin Skywalker of live service games, the chosen one, who, the shining beacon, the example, the live service game that all companies want to have that recurring cash flow, to be sustainable, to be extremely profitable. And it's the big game that set that live service trend. And it's like, it's a shocker for me that they've been losing money. Apparently, they've been losing. All this while, I've been thinking they make billions and billions a month, but apparently they've been losing money for a couple of months now. And it's like, yeah, that's for a game like Fortnite, for that to be happening. So I believe Endymion made a video about this too. Like, if it's happening to the number one live service game, so what's the financial impact on the ones below it? Like, it's the same thing with Battlefield 6. It's the same thing with High Guard. It's now gone, the dead game. It's the same thing with Marathon. It's the same thing with Concord, and it's the same with many of the failed live service games. It's the same with Square Enix's Avengers game. It's the same with Babylon's Fall. So many, a lot of live service games kind of fell off. So it's like, if Fortnite is losing money, what does that say about the model in general? What does that say with, it wouldn't surprise me at this point if Apex Legends wasn't doing that well, if Valorant wasn't doing that well, maybe even Counter-Strike. But I think Counter-Strike is still okay. But yeah, what does that say about the trend in going all in with this live service, or investing in general in live service? I think it's a bad idea, which is why I kept saying in the Crimson Desert video earlier that, I think this is the point where um game companies are forced to, you gotta jump ship on this live service chasing. Like, it's gonna lead to nowhere. It's just gonna lead to further losses. I think we're at that point that, we kept saying this for the longest time. We've been saying this for several years, that this is not sustainable. The big players already captured the majority of the market. It's too saturated, but they don't want to listen. They kept insisting that, oh, we'll hit the jackpot. We'll hit the jackpot at some point. But now with Fortnite, the number one game, the game that will immediately come to people's minds when you say live service, it's actually gonna, I think this is the point where game companies will need to start to take a look at. You know what? Yeah, people aren't willing to keep paying money. They're not willing to buy that Fortnite skin anymore. They're not willing to buy that piece of cosmetic anymore to keep the game running. So I think we should go back to making our games smaller and much more sustainable, and properly and adequately target, that particular gamer you want to accommodate, which is us. you know, like Kim Kardashian in your video game isn't gonna do wonders. People who are fans of Kim Kardashian don't play video games. Sorry, they're not the video game demographic. So yeah, it's crazy to me that, like, this layoff, together with 500 million of identified cost savings. So even then, like, this is the shocking part. It's the first part, like the downturn in Fortnite engagement that started in 2025. So it started last year. It not this year. It started last year. They're spending more than they're making. So they've been losing money for a year now, over almost a year now. Like, and lay the layoff is not even counted with the $500 million spend. So that's for me, that's crazy. That's crazy spending. I didn't I expected Fortnite to be making a shitload of money, like even up to now. But the fact that they've been losing money since 2025, like, yeah, it's like, for me, this is the ultimate wake up call. It's like, if if companies still are trying to chase this live service trend, and they're still going all in, spending this amount of money, spending this amount of money trying to chase, then I'm sorry, I think you deserve to shut down. You do. Like, you have really poor business acumen at that point. Not even just in a game development standpoint, in a business acumen in general standpoint. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm not. since it's a thing now, I should note that the layoffs aren't related to AI. Well, but nah, I don't believe this. You are gonna incorporate AI to a certain degree if you are bleeding 500 million. I don't know if this per annum or for per month, but that's a lot of money to be bleeding out. So you will incorporate AI to some point to save money and to be more efficient. You just are if you're gonna lose that much money. Uh yeah. So if the golden goose, if the golden child of live service is losing money, then it wouldn't surprise me if everyone else below it is losing money too. So yeah, so I think this is the point where we're gonna see more single player games, which I'm all in for. I am 100% all in for. So yeah. So I'm gonna put a different spin on this a little bit. This is gonna be a little bit self-indulgent for me. So to kind of prove my point that we as a gaming as a hardcore gamer collective, we want more smaller sized single player games. I can prove it with the coming articles. So first is I know this is pretty kind of out there articles, but as a JRPG content creator, I just want to prove a point. So first is like, first is Square. It's like despite their revenue declining, this is a pretty new article just in February. So they still were able to generate an operating income of 39%. So an increase because of their back catalog. Wait, let me see where it is. Yeah, because like Square Enix has been, for those unaware, they've been overhauling the way they develop games. Because back in 2020 to 2022 to 2023, they've been churning out so many games, but in terms of quality, they were kind of subpar. So given that their revenues weren't doing that well, so they decided to pivot for the next couple of years. They decided to do remasters only or very, very few games because they wanted to overhaul the way they do games. They want to release lesser games but more quality. So I so what they're doing now is like they're kind of backtracking on the AAA blockbuster type of games. They're making instead making more games like Octopath Traveler, Dragon Quest, HD 2D, which I think it's doing very well for them. I like Octopath Traveler very much, and they've been remaking games on a smaller scale, and they stopped being exclusive to PlayStation. They're prioritizing multi-platform now, especially the Switch. So yeah, so they although it's because the decline in revenue is because of what do you call this, the lack of games, because they're busy developing games. uh they're de- they're they're letting it cook for them to be good. I expect them to release more better games in 2027 onwards, because 2027 is the start of the year where they overhauled the way they operate. So yeah, so even if their revenues are down, it their operating income is 39%. So for me, that shows that people are looking for smaller games. Me as a JRPG YouTuber, like I want smaller scale games with emphasis on good storytelling, with linear story and not too open world. So if that's not proof enough that we want smaller games, here's another article by Atlas. So Atlas is the developers of Persona, the Persona games, and more recently Metaphor. So Atlas again, they raised the salaries of all their employees. So Atlas tends to do this on an annual basis now. So new employees at the entry level positions, so get a monthly raise to 300k yen. So which is about 15%. So that's crazy. It's like you wouldn't be doing that, in my opinion, if you were losing money. If you were, if you were bleeding 500 million on your video game, no way on earth are you gonna do this. You're not gonna raise salaries of everyone across the board by 15%. It's not happening. So the fact that Atlas managed to do this, so take in mind this is an article from March 17th, so very very recent. So before someone accuses me, oh great, that's an old article. So it it's a very very new article. So that shows me that they're doing very well for them to be able to do this. And then finally, yeah, definitely, self-indulging here. Neon Falcon increased their income by a whopping 670%. So that is crazy. That is really crazy. So this article came out Feb 13, 2026. So because of my game of the year for last year, Trails in the Sky first chapter. So to me, what this tells me is like, um, it's not because it's not because of necessarily just because of economic downturn, just because the West is losing 500 million in losses for it's because they're not accommodating to the people they actually should be targeting, and that development is way across the way too expensive. You really need to wind down your development costs, make it sustainable, make it like make it small scale, make it single player, and to make your money back. That this infinite money perspective of live service game, it should stop. I think it should, especially for Sony, where they're recovering from that, which I'll get into later, and we're bearing the brunt of the cost of Sony's mistakes. So that's another topic. But yeah, that I just wanted to prove my point with these three articles: Square, Atlas. I know they're all JRPG companies, but they're doing really well, and they're doing quite well despite being a much smaller game. A much smaller game that's more targeted for people like me. Their finances are good. They're doing really well, which compared to the much bigger competitors who are bleeding really hard right now. Anyway, so yeah, let me read the comments before I move to the video. Okay. Yeah, okay. Autoplay for MMO. Yeah, it's for particularly for mobile MMOs. There's an autoplay button, which is for me is weird. Why even play the game at that point if there's an autoplay? Probably being replaced by, yeah, 100% Epic is gonna replace people with AI. If you're losing 500M, you have to find ways to cut costs while at the same time continue to keep the lights on. So AI definitely the forefront of that. How much profit does Fortnite make as opposed to revenue? Yeah, according to the article, they're losing. They are losing five. They are losing 500M according to my. Because like the way they said it's like we're spending significantly more than we're making. So net loss. That's definitely a net loss. How are they, yeah, exactly. How are they losing money? It's like I would have thought this whole time they would have been making so much money. So, but apparently that that train has crashed a long time ago. So I hope that's a lesson that the other companies pick up. What does that mean for League of Legends? I'm not sure. I'm not sure on the Riot side. I'm not sure how League of Legends and Valorant is doing. But if they were offloading so many companies, if Tencent is offloading all their smaller companies, all the JRPG companies, I would say that it's not doing so well either to sustain new projects. So there's that too. It's like I think it's not generating mass amounts of revenue for them to take more risks. That's why they're winding down on their single player indie game ventures. Well, actually start getting games. Like, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Despite the brutal. I feel bad for for employees losing their jobs. I do, but it's a product of really bad decision making by the higher ups, thinking that the live service trend will go on forever. Especially we're still dealing with the repercussions of over investment during COVID, thinking that people will play games forever, even after COVID is finished, after the quarantine's finished, which is not true. No, Kim K doesn't. They play crap like Candy Crush and don't understand those aren't the same demographic as the people playing for it. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think Epic spent too much money on getting all these expensive celebrities and all those expensive events for them to run. Like, they probably made good money, but not enough for it to be a net profit. That's probably what happened. So again, you should be winding down and properly targeting your demographic to be sustainable, to have sustainable video games. Hypnotic pointed out that they're losing money because of the free games for Epic Launcher that no one uses. And Fortnite can't subsidize it anymore. Yeah, that's true. It's like I think Tim Sweeney has been blowing the money too incorrectly. It's like, yeah, I go to Epic Games. Like I bought a few games, a few cheap games, very cheap games, like $20, $10, $15. Not the on release games. I buy those on Steam. Like whenever I see a good deal on Epic, I sometimes barely buy them on an Epic Game Store. So otherwise, I go there, I get the free game, then that's it. Which I'm pretty sure 98 to 99% of other people do. Yeah. So I think like yeah, EGS hasn't really done anything to make people want to stay in that platform because Steam is clearly the dominant platform. It has most of the features. Most people are there already. It has more games. Actually, Epic. There's a lot of JRPGs that are not in Epic Game Store. I think it's a. I actually think the JRPG companies don't want to be listed at Epic Game Store. I think they perceive Epic Game Store to be inferior when it comes to branding because I hardly see there's fewer JRPGs in Epic Game Store. I'm not sure why. Blowing a bunch of money on licenses like Telltale's did. Yep. And they've been I think for a time it worked in the early years of Fortnite up until the mid stages. But right now, I think it's not worth it anymore. I think they're blowing more money than they are making. So yeah. We doesn't buy enough skins. Yeah, we're not buying Beardo skin and not enough people buying Beardo skins. Yeah, they I don't know. I It depends how much they spend on putting, but again, it's like they've been doing this for years already with regards to listing free giving away free games. So yeah, I think it's better if they just stop doing that. I agree. I think it's better if but then again, I don't know what Epic can do at this point to compete with Steam. They have nothing apart from that. But then if I go in there just to collect and not to stay in your platform and buy games, then what's the point? But Disney invested $1 billion, all went to DEI BS and shitty shows. I'm not up to date anymore with regards to the chain of power in Disney. Iger's about to retire and stuff like that, but yeah, I'm kind of burnt out with Disney. I just like whenever something new about Disney comes, I was like, I'm not enthusiastic about it anymore. I'm not really excited anymore. It's like when Phil brings it up, then we'll talk about it. But in terms of me being proactive in looking for those stories, not anymore. Then whining and crying about Steam being a monopoly and trying to get a lawsuit started makes a lot more sense. Yeah, that's true. I haven't been up to date with that either. I know Steam has a lot of lawsuits going on right now, but I can imagine Epic playing a hand on it just to try to break their momentum, which is for me stupid. Just offer something people want, which you don't have. You really don't. Epic Games, it's really inferior compared to Steam. No reason for you to prefer Epic Game Store over Steam. Square Enix basically destroyed Final Fantasy 15 taking too long to make. Yeah, that's another article too that came out recently where the average demographic of Final Fantasy is 35 years old, which is crazy. Which is people around my age. Like it's like I would expect it to be a lot younger, but the thing is, the younger generations don't play JRPGs as much. They don't appreciate Final Fantasy anymore because again, yeah, they take way too long. They take way too long to develop video games, which yeah, again, which further reinforces my reasoning where you need to scale your game smaller, make it more sustainable, cost less, takes less time to develop, and stuff like that. People don't really are not really in the market for like super groundbreaking graphics anymore or breaking the boundaries of visual aesthetics anymore. They just want good gameplay more than anything else. Yeah. Most I stopped even looking to see what free games they have. And last thing I played there was Metro Exodus. Yeah, it's like yeah, me personally, it's like it's like only if it's like a very I know it's expensive AAA game that they're giving away, then that's the only time I'll log in. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother anymore if it's a game that I don't really know. And hi, last relic. Yeah, doing good. Hi, Rabbit. No Phil tonight. Yeah, he has to go to he has a wedding to attend to with his cousin. But I think it's his wedding with it's a second wedding with Harambe. And good night, Mr. Milktokes. Yeah, have a good sleep. Okay. Steam has been around for so yeah, it's been they've had time to not only iron out all the bugs, but they have added in meaningful ways. The only thing that will pose a threat for Steam, in my opinion, is if Newells steps down and then someone shitty takes his place. That's the only threat I see with Steam with regards to if someone very greedy takes over. I think that's gonna ruin Steam too as a platform. For me, that's the biggest threat of Steam right now. When Lord Gaben gets too old and he has to retire, and whoever takes his place, has a different mindset from Gabe. I think that's when Steam is about to get ruined. But otherwise, Steam will maintain its monopoly. Okay, so yeah, so that's for me. For me, this is the biggest story of the week, the Fortnite story. So that's basically my take. But let's take a look at. Shout out to Legendary Drops. He made a video of this too. So yeah, let's see what he has to say about the Fortnite situation. So maybe he raised some points that I didn't either. But yeah, it's like this. If this is not the wake up call that AAA studios need to to reconsider chasing the trend that'll lead to a dead end, then I don't know what will. Then I think these companies deserve to shut down if they don't pivot to smaller scale games. But anyway, let's see what Legendary Drops has to say.
I can't believe it's actually happening.
Wait, I've been speaking for so long. Yeah, if these headphones, if there's no audio, it's gonna shut itself off. Okay, anyway. So here's Legendary Drops with his take on the Fortnite situation.
Fortnite has fallen. The mythical dragon that the games industry has been chasing for the better part of a decade.
It's a little fast, but let me know if it's too fast. But it's at 1.25. Oh, no, it's 1.5. My bad. 1.25. There we go.
The success that they have been trying to emulate pretty much across the entire games industry is in so much trouble that their CEO came out and flat out said, we are losing players, we are losing money, we need to lay off 1,000 people, and we still need an additional $500 million in cost savings. Good God. I don't think people understand just how valuable it is for the games industry to realize that this game is mortal, that it bleeds just like everything else. And the problems
like I said, it's the golden child of live service. Like whenever we say what's the most successful / profitable live service game, it's top of mind is always Fortnite. And all these companies wanted a piece of the pie, which it's gone. The pie is fully eaten, you know what I mean?
Epic is having, the problems that Fortnite is having is going to send a shockwave across the industry. Now, to be fair, the problems that they're going through, the loss of players that Fortnite is seeing, while it's a lot, believe me, you guys are going to be pretty shocked by this, it's not the only part of their problem. The issues that they're suffering from are the same ones that are basically plaguing all of the Western games industry, where they have too many employees. They are spending way too much money. They're not paying attention to the audience that they already have. And because of that, they put themselves into a weakened position where even just the slightest change in temperature is a crisis to these guys. So today, we're going to be talking about how much trouble Fortnite and Epic are in right now, what this actually means for the games industry, and also how some analysts are saying that really it's Eastern games at fault. Sometimes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Which matches with the articles I showed earlier. I showed like JRPGs companies doing really, really well right now, despite the economic downturn, despite all these AAA games failing, despite the shutdowns, despite the layoffs. So yeah, of course, gaslight the East,
Sometimes it pays to be right. But before that, a bit of a confessional. Today's video is sponsored by Helix Mattress, and I have been insanely excited to talk about this, mostly because I'm a terrible sleeper. Historically, I've always had a problem with it. I run hot, but since switching, I've been sleeping way deeper and waking up feeling actually rested instead of just
sponsoring
tremendous enough. Thank you to Helix for sponsoring today's video, and also thank you to Helix for fixing my sleep. I never thought I'd ever be around to be able to make this video. Fortnite has been the games industry's golden child for nearly a decade now.
I said the exact same thing. The exact same term. Okay, that's funny. Anyway.
Largely responsible for the live service boom, for the rise of battle royales, and honestly, I think it makes perfect sense. Why? Because since launch, Fortnite has reportedly made over $42 billion. It's pulled in over 650 million registered players and still has around 110 active players, just reported in 2026.
That's crazy. Despite I'm drinking water in the meantime. That's why I kept my webcam off. But it's crazy that despite this many players playing, they're bleeding 500M. Like, yeah, that's I don't know. That's nutty. Like, it goes to show this business model for video games isn't working anymore. we have to go back to basics. You know, when the single player game, when the game launches, just have some funds allotted for post game support, and that's it. You know, grab your profit and go for the next project. There's no such thing as infinite money glitch. It just isn't.
It earns more than GTA 5 and Minecraft combined, and it averages around 14 million peak concurrent players day to day. To put that into perspective, that's basically like half of the existing player base on Steam at a given time, all piling into one game at once. Fortnite has launched careers for content creators. It helped make one of the biggest streams in gaming history possible, with over 600,000 people turning in to watch Drake and Ninja play back in 2021. It blurred the lines between gaming and pop culture with crossovers in damn near every corner of media, from celebrities to movies to other games as well. It pioneered the virtual concerts as well, with Travis Scott pulling in over 12 million players and opening the door to even more events after that throughout the years. Now, I've never really brought this up, and some of you guys are probably going to be surprised by this, but while I have a lot of criticisms for Epic as a company, I have always held a lot of respect for Fortnite, because as a platform, they just kept pioneering. They kept doing things that were experimental. They just kept evolving. They were never afraid of trying something new, whether that meant new modes or huge map changes or just full-on overhauls to the game itself. It became this game that was maybe not made for everybody, but anybody could play it. And it was a huge reason that Sony and other platforms finally gave in on crossplay. It lowered the hardware barrier by proving a massive multiplayer game could run on nearly any piece of hardware. And while I'm not exactly thrilled with how much they have normalized live service, they avoided pay to win right from the start. They always kept it to monetization on cosmetics only. And they also set a standard on how much free content a game should offer players when it's a free-to-play game. But the sad truth of the matter is that the games industry just never...
Even then, like, I think at some point, like, I know Fortnite has a young demographic, but I think that's the problem too, where most of their players, most of their former fan base, I think they grew up, you know, when they were playing this game a lot when they were kids, they grew up, like, they started working already, making their own money. Like, they're not spending that money on in-game cosmetics anymore. I think they grew up already. So they stopped playing Fortnite, they stopped buying the skins. So in the new generation, I think, has less disposable income or less of an allowance from their parents. I think that's a huge factor too. That's why their revenues are declining for this game. You know, it's like, and plus there's much more distractions now more than ever. There's TikTok videos, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, whatever. There's so much more competition now outside of video games that are free too, where you don't have to pay anything to get entertained. All you need is your smartphone and Wi-Fi for entertainment, compared to like buying skins in Fortnite or buying video games in general. So there's that to consider too. That's why now more than ever you have to take care of your customers. So, which is, I think, where the Western games industry is failing to do hard, and instead trying to continue this live service trend, which is, it's very clear if this game is collapsing beneath it, then it's not surprising if the others are too.
Learned the right lessons from Fortnite. Investors and executives just saw the money that they were making, and they just spent billions of dollars chasing their profits instead of trying to understand what made it work. A game this influential, this dominant, was just treated like it was something that was untouchable, a machine that would just keep printing money forever. Exactly. So these guys convinced themselves that this was the model that they needed to follow, the safest bet for the business, the success that every studio should try to copy. And now that illusion is finally starting to crack.
Yes.
That was only just a couple weeks ago that Epic announced a roughly 15% increase to V-Bucks, the Fortnite in-game currency. The explanation they gave was that the cost of running Fortnite has gone up and that they needed help raising money to pay the...
You know, maybe you should stop all those celebrity endorsement or featuring. You know, maybe you should stop doing that and focus on making a good game or making a new game. making smaller games. I don't know. For companies to think that this will last forever, for me, it doesn't make sense.
Bills. At the time, this just kind of felt like vague posting, but then just 2 weeks later, Epic would announce that they were laying off 1,000 employees and trying to cut another $500 million in operating costs because far fewer players are playing Fortnite. I had to do a double take on this because I thought this was Ubisoft or something like that. The New York Times reported on this in an article titled, "Epic Games Lays Off 1,000 Employees, Citing Fortnite Slump." They write, the video game company Epic Games is laying off more than 1,000 employees, it said on Tuesday, citing a drop in the amount of time that people are spending playing Fortnite. The downturn in Fortnite engagement that started in 2025 means that we're spending significantly more than we are making. And we have to make major cuts to keep the company funded. Tim Sweet.
It's like all this time, I thought Fortnite was always profitable. Like, I had no idea that it started bleeding since 2025. So it's like the fact that he didn't even mention like a later month. I'm inclined to believe that it's the start of 2025. So they've been bleeding for over a year now. That's crazy.
The company's chief executive, wrote in a blog post. This layoff, together with over $500 million of identified cost savings in contracting, marketing, and closing some open roles, puts us in a more stable place. The cut represents about 20% of the workforce at Epic Games, a company spokeswoman said. It was the second time in recent years that the company, which is based in North Carolina, had announced major job cuts. In 2023, Epic Games laid off about 830 employees, or about 16% of its workforce, citing lower profit margins for Fortnite. I'm sorry.
Okay, so in 2023, they were still making money, but not enough money. Okay, so yeah, it's like, it's at this point the AAA industry at large should have realized already. But now we gotta take our bag. We gotta get that recurring revenue. We just gotta, yeah. A part of me, like, you get what you deserve. I'm sorry.
We're here again, Sweeney wrote in his blog post. Some of the challenges Epic Games is facing are problems for the wider video game industry. Sweeney wrote, slower growth, weaker spending, a drop in sales for new video game consoles compared to the previous generation of consoles, and games competing for time against other increasingly engaging forms of entertainment. Despite Fortnite remaining one of the most successful games in the world, we've had challenges delivering consistent Fortnite magic with every season. We're only in the early stages of returning to mobile and optimizing Fortnite for the world's billions of smartphones, Sweeney wrote. Now, I'm not sure what console sales have to do with less people playing Fortnite, a game that you could quite literally play on just about any.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking about the same thing. Like, consoles have, there's Fortnite, you can play it literally everywhere, if I'm not mistaken. So the correlation between consoles is, I don't think it's that high. Like, I wouldn't buy an Xbox or a Switch or a PlayStation 5 to play Fortnite. Yeah, anyway.
A single device, but he's not wrong about the game struggling to keep up with that Fortnite magic. There was a bump back with that Star Wars crossover they had with the AI Darth Vader that everybody was trying to get to say increasingly deranged shit, but outside of moments like that, the seasonal content just hasn't had the same pull or even the same baseline level of quality. Chapter 7 had a long list of issues: frequent crashes, control problems, movement problems, invisible players, a map design that made it harder to navigate, so people really couldn't see any of the new points of interest that they put into it. And that drop in quality has shown up pretty quick. Circana's Matt Piscatella reported that PlayStation users, who make up 35% of active players, and Xbox users, who make up 31%, saw their playtime fall from 21 hours and 19 hours in 2025 to 16 hours and 15 hours respectively. That is a massive drop, and it reflects the game not only losing time, but also attention and momentum. So what's behind all of this? Well, funny you ask, because it seems like the titan that helped set the trend for live service games has now become the trend chaser themselves. Fortnite has lost a lot of attention to Roblox, and in response to this, Epic has shifted their entire focus and strategy towards user-generated content instead of their own content, which makes their own content suffer as a result of it. Now, creators can go in and they can make their own game.
Isn't that like kind of cannibalizing your own content if you're going to be like a Roblox? And yeah, it's really, it's like already it's been really stiff competition. And the others that are just coming in or still making games to compete, like, yeah, it's really not such a I don't know why for these people it's such a mystery why High Guard shut down, why Marathon isn't doing as good, why Concord shut down. It's like, fake it till you make it, and they probably won't if they continue to try.
Games, and they can monetize those games through cosmetic revenue sharing, something that Tim Sweeney has said has already grown into a $400 million economy. The problem is that those creator earnings are tied directly to where that player is spending their time, whether that's in the core game or in a user-generated experience or a mix of both. So while, yes, it is creating revenue, it's also cutting directly into Fortnite's own ecosystem and their own money. This is essentially money that these guys would have been making on their own, but now they're just giving a cut to these creators to hopefully try to grow into something like Roblox. Now, while losing players and playtime is obviously going to hurt this company, this is still not the real root of their problems. The problem that they have is actually the one that's eating the rest of the industry alive right now, where they were successful, but they just did not build themselves to stay successful. They built themselves to overextend. I mean, even after cutting 1,000 employees, Epic is still a company with over 4,000 developers split across Unreal Engine and Fortnite, a game that under no circumstances should require that much overhead to be able to sustain itself. Now, on top of that,
that's, yeah, I get it. Fortnite's like, bringing in the billions upon billions, but if it's that many, do you really need that many developers for 3,000, 4,000 to be able to keep the game running? Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think that's kind of overkill. And yeah, the moment that the revenue starts coming in, that overhead cost is going to eat them really, really, really fast. So that's the risk too, compared to like the small scale games that I've been talking about, like, Yeah, I didn't mention Nihon Falcon, the one that generated 670% profit from Trails in the Sky first chapter. They only had like 66 employees. Okay. They only had 66 employees. And now I think since because of that success, because of Trails in the Sky, I think they're up to like 80 or 85. So yeah, you can keep your operation small and be very, very profitable. I think that's how that should be the model that the games industry should be following in the not so distant future.
Epic has also torched billions of dollars in their lawsuits with Apple and Google, something that I view as an objectively good deed to society. I will give them that because both of these companies were and largely still are running effective monopolies on their storefronts. But this is a company that is spending increasingly more money, upwards of $4.2 billion a year now, to run a single game, a single engine, and a single storefront. And if I had to guess which probably costs them the most, well, it's probably their war with Steam. For years now, Epic has tried and failed to compete with Steam, and Sweetie can go online and he can cry about fairness all he wants, but he is the one that is funding exclusives. He is the one funding free games. He is the one trying to corner a market by cornering its players, by backing a platform whose main strategy has been to give away free games while still missing some of the most basic features that people actually use on Steam. They have basically just been handing out free money to developers and free games to players, and neither one of those has translated into any kind of loyalty from their storefront. From 2019 to 2024, Epic Game Store grew by 173%, but their third-party revenue only grew by 1.6%. People would show up for the free games and then leave. They just do not want to spend money there. Epic really is no different than the rest of the games industry, and these are the people that everybody's been trying to...
I don't... Wait, you know what? Let me just open my Steam versus my Epic Game Store. Like, I'm a JRPG aficionado. I get JRPGs on day one. That's the genre I'm willing to pay full price. Look, I don't see any JRPGs here at all. Like, let's see it. Let me set aside that first. Let's do a compare and contrast with entire screen. There we go. So here is, it's so barren with, there is absolutely no JRPGs here, or is there? Okay, let's see. Final Fantasy. Let's try Final Fantasy. Like, okay, Square is here, but I think only Square though. I think only Square. So what about Persona? Yeah, see, it's only Square. Oh, there is no. It's the website. It's only Square that's in here. So no Trails in the Sky. Like, I don't know why they only one. Yeah, and it's the spin-off Smash series. Whereas compared to Steam, I have everything here. Okay, that's a weird top search. Yeah, it's like everything I want is right here. It's curated for me. The games that I could potentially want is over here. Where you get none of that. You get none of that over here. I get, like, when I open the game store, it's like games that I'm not interested in at all. Like these, Resident Evil, Crimson Desert, I can get in Steam. So why would I go out of my way to get it in a separate platform compared to the platform I'm already used to? So it's like, yeah, again, it's like there's nothing here. There's no incentive for me to invest in your platform unless it's like really, really cheap. It's like it's super, super cheap, or like it's not effective on Steam. That, like, the cheap bargain bin games that I'm not really looking to get invested to. Says I just want to play a weekend game. That's the only time I'll put money for Steam. And even then, most people don't even think that way. So yeah, it's like, for me, it's like I would just scrap. Wait, did I set the volume? No, I don't think so. I think Epic should just scrap the Epic Game Store and just focus on making good games. I think that's the good smaller scale games, and I think that would be the best way to move forward. And then list them on Steam. But that's just me. What do I know? I'm just a YouTuber.
to follow. These are the same problems that's been eating away at everybody. They took their eye off the ball. They stopped focusing on the community and the success that they already had. They stopped making other games. They started chasing somebody else's bag, whether that was Roblox or Steam. Doesn't really matter. Now you got this company that's chasing two dragons at the exact same time, and they're not going to catch either one of them. They're burning tons of cash, and they should have just stayed focused on protecting what they already built. But now here they are, falling apart at the first sign of trouble.
Exactly.
I am shocked more people aren't talking about this. This is such an important
exactly. That this I would have thought more people were talking about this. It's like I think the bigger story is still like, I get it's Black Snape and Crimson Desert, but this is a really big story in my opinion. Like this has so much repercussions with, especially in the Western gaming industry as a whole. Like, this is the breaking point. It's all gonna crash down in the live service angle anyway, live service space.
Development. This is such a massive deal. I don't think people understand just how valuable of a lesson this is for the rest of the industry. I mean, for years now, we've had executives and investors talk about Fortnite like it's some golden goose, like it's a cheat code for the games industry. If they just copied it, if they just did what they did, if they just monetized it and built it the way that they built their game, then they would be able to make so much money that they would become immune to their own problems. They would just be able to spend past their mistakes because there's always going to be more money on the other side. Fortnite floundering, it losing relevance right now, this was always going to happen. This is just a reality for every game that will ever come out because, well, things just lose relevance over time. Less people become interested in it. It's not really the fault of the game in some cases, though I definitely think it's actually the fault of their game right now. But, them losing money, them losing relevance right now, it shows the industry that...
for single player games, eventually they're going to die out at a certain point, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, it's such a negative perception for these executives that you can't make money forever from these people. Like, no, it's like just make a single player game. You're gonna make a lot of money, and then save that income for a rainy day if there's a business downturn. But now you have more money to make better single player games and then make more money. It's like that's been the cornerstone of video games ever since its inception, ever since it became commercialized. And the fact that they thought that would change just because live service models existed, it's crazy. And now we're seeing the consequences of that way of thinking. They're learning this the really, really hard way. Even though we've been telling them for years that we want, better, smaller games that don't, milk us dry with monetization.
Live service, no matter how successful, cannot make up for bad spending, for lack of quality, for ignoring the audience that you already have. This is one of the biggest games in the world, proving that they can't even get away with it. These companies do not know how to protect their audiences. Either that or they're just not interested in it. They're way too busy trying to chase somebody else's. And, now you have one of the biggest games in the entire world that just got caught doing the exact same thing. That should be a warning. Like there's no other way to cut that. The question is whether or not this is something that the industry will hear, whether or not this is something that they can recover from, whether or not, let's say it does convince them, whether they even have enough time to be able to go back on this. According to one analyst, they're already out of time. In the last half of that New York Times article, they pivoted to a market analyst where they write Juice Van Duren, a market analyst and professor at New York University, said that Fortnite must compete for attention not only with popular games like Roblox, but also with social media companies like TikTok and short-form videos on YouTube and other platforms. Its problems, he says, are part of a broader shift in the industry, which is growing more in China than it is in the United States. We're witnessing in real time the decline of American cultural dominance in gaming, Van Duren said. One of these landmarks, like Fortnite, is starting...
Oh, yeah. Well, apart from live service, there's other factors like, Sweet Baby Inc., DEI. You kind of butchered your best franchises, too. So a lot of combinations that cause the downfall, deterioration of quality for Western games.
To feel the burn as the consumer entertainment industry is slowly moving from west to east in its financial gravity point. Oh, man, I don't think I have ever felt more vindicated. I am outclassing a New York University professor. How about that, guys? Talk about a step up in the world. I've been screaming about this for the better part of 2 years on YouTube. And this is really getting to the heart of the two biggest problems for the Western games industry. First, that they can't hold on to the audiences that they already have. And second, more and more of those audiences are starting to drift east. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but this situation has only gotten worse year after year. Honestly, I don't even know if I should really even call it a problem at this point because us players have definitely been benefiting from a lot of this competition in a huge way. But Eastern publishers have slowly but surely been chipping away at the player bases of these giant Western companies for years now. And it's gotten to the point where the foundation is starting to crack and these guys are falling through. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples because it shows just how much things have changed in just a relatively short amount of time. If I asked you guys, who do you think the king of open world RPGs are? I would guess that most of you guys would probably pipe up with From Software just because of Elden Ring. Hell, people who don't even play their games would probably assume it's them.
Yeah, for me, once upon a time, it's Bethesda and CD Projekt Red with Witcher 3. But I don't really, I'm not really that fully excited for their games. Witcher 4 will probably be good, but I think that's still a ways off. And yeah, Bethesda games, Bethesda really fell off. I didn't really, I couldn't get into Starfield, and uh, the discourse with that game is just, it's just not great.
Then for me, at least right behind that, it would be stuff like Neo 2 and 3, and now Crimson Desert, which just kind of came out of nowhere and seems to just get better and better the more that you play it. But rewind that clock about 10 years, and the first name that comes to mind out of anybody's mouth is going to be Bethesda. They were once the defining studio in the industry. Now they're a company that takes 12 years to release a game that is so far off the mark that the only thing people can offer these guys is skepticism or a bunch of videos making fun of them on YouTube. Now, the funny thing is that I don't even think that Starfield is the main problem here. The real problem is that it took them 12 years to make that shitty game. Yeah, in that same time that it took Bethesda to make one game, an entirely new generation of players has grown up. A whole new...
Once upon a time, like back in the PS3 360 era, when Bethesda showed Oblivion, when Bethesda showed Fallout 3, it's like I was really amazed. Like, holy shit, this looks really good. This looks amazing. That's how I got into open world games, because of Bethesda. Like, I did not know how to play open world games until I played the Bethesda games. But then, like, look how far the mighty have fallen simply because of trend chasing and this, DEI investments. Like, it really did so much damage to the Western games industry.
Customer base came in barely knowing these guys other than just being the studio that keeps re-releasing Skyrim. And in that same stretch of time, we got Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Elden Ring. We got The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. We got Neo 1, 2, and 3. We have a long list of RPGs that came in, took mindshare, took attention, and built fandoms of their own. And if you zoom out across the entire industry, outside of maybe first-person shooters and sports games, the Western industry has damn near surrendered every single genre to Eastern studios. They didn't just lose relevance. These guys gave it away years ago. They stopped innovating. They kept making the same thing. They took forever to be able to make their games, and they abandoned genres outright. And every year they did that, more player interest just consolidated somewhere else. Now China is entering into the picture in a way big way. And all this is doing is just making things worse for the West. Now you have this audience with an enormous scale. They have low labor costs and a market that honestly seems a lot more interested in just focusing on gameplay rather than all of the extra baggage that Western publishers just keep piling onto their games. And that is a serious threat to these companies that are already moving way too slow and spending way too much money. I mean, guys, just look at the most beloved games.
The downside, though, is like when he said low labor cost, I don't necessarily see that as a good thing. It really depends. Asia's like China, Japan, they're notorious for getting overworked. So that's a problem. I think despite the good games, the good final products, like, they should fix that. Like, you shouldn't work your people to the bone to that degree, in my opinion. But anyway, yeah, that's for me. That's another subject, but I feel that's a problem that needs to be addressed.
Year so far. You got Neo 3, Resident Evil 9, Crimson Desert, Pokemon Pokopia, Mugenics, Slay the Spire 2, Monster Hunter Stories. 2 of those games are Western. They're both indie games. The rest are all Eastern. These guys are so cooked. Now, what makes matters even worse is that much of this industry's growth has been coming from Chinese players, people who, by and large, just do not care about Western games, largely because they probably can't even run them. Go look at their Steam reviews. Half of them are just about performance. But when something does hit with that audience, it explodes. Black Myth Wukong sold over 10 million copies in just 3 days. Slay the Spire 2 sold 3 million copies in 3 days, and 43% of those sales came from China. And if you want to see where the center of gravity is shifting, go look at the most played games in China right now. Counter-Strike, Dota 2, PUBG. That is the top 3 played games on Steam. I don't think that people are taking this seriously. This is not just about sales. This isn't about missing a quarter or having a disappointing launch. These guys are losing the habit. They are losing the default position that they used to have for entire genres. That's the part that people are not fully processing here.
Yeah, I think so too, which is why I feel like, for me, this is the biggest story of the week. And, I think it's just not registering to a lot of people how much of a revelation this is with regards to the future of Western games, and especially those really heavily invested in the live service space. Like, if one of the biggest if not the biggest live service game in the world is falling apart, what does that say about, the smaller ones? Like, I know even Battlefield 6, despite doing record numbers in terms of copies sold, they still laid off people because, like, it's not making enough money. For me, it's like it's collapsing right before our eyes, and I think, like, not enough people are talking about it.
stop looking at you first, when your name stops carrying the same weight, when you have new generations of players that are growing up to be excited about somebody else's game instead of your own, you're not fixing that with a trailer, a patch, or a live service game. You are irrelevant. Western publishers have now spent years trying to engineer success from the outside in. More money, more developers, more management, more systems, more monetization, more market research, more trend chasing, more how do we capture this audience? More how do we increase our engagement? Everything is built around extracting a bigger result instead of just creating a stronger product. So what comes out on the other side is just going to feel hollow again and again. Expensive, polished, maybe technically impressive, sure, but ultimately hollow because you guys do not care about the product itself. You can feel when a game is built by people that are trying to build something that players love, and you can feel when something is built by people that are trying to secure a return. Meanwhile, a lot of these games that are actually pulling players right now understand a much simpler truth. Just make a good game, make a fun game, make something with a strong identity, a clear fantasy. Momentum really matters right now. Make something that people are going to be immediately excited to talk about. That's what you want to do.
Like,
not every single Eastern game is...
Carefully target your audience and quadruple down on that target audience. That's... Like for me, that's why I stick to JRPGs because like they do that really, really well. And I've shown you guys the numbers. They're doing they're doing well for themselves despite the economy, despite the West faltering really hard. So that's all you need to do in this space. Just make a video game that's catered to your paying audience that really resonates with what they want with your video game, and you will hit the numbers.
Doing this. Not every indie game is doing this, but enough of these guys are doing it that it's becoming impossible to ignore. Players want a game that feels...
Okay, this is Crimson Desert, McCracken. If you're asking for this one, this is Crimson Desert.
Feels like they know what they are rather than these games that come out that are still trying to figure out who they're being made for. They want games that commit. They want games that are confident in themselves. And in the West, for a long time now, that's just not been the case. That's why Fortnite stumbling matters so much right now. This was the untouchable one. This was the golden goose that every single executive treated like it was the blueprint. Everybody wanted one of these games. And now that even that is cracking, even that Fortnite is now proving that you can't outrun weak direction, overspending, and a drifting audience forever, that should be the lesson. These guys need to learn from it. You cannot fix this industry by chasing the next dragon. You can only fix it by remembering why players showed up. Epic is essentially just doing the exact same thing as every single other game publisher right now. They're just chasing everybody else's tails. They're running out of ideas. Either that, or they are just so fixated on somebody else's money, on somebody else's audience that they just can't get it off their mind. So
it's probably both. It's like, like the creativity drought is there, and at the same time they want that recurring income. I think it's both, but you gotta get your head out of your ass if you want to continue to keep the lights on at this point. If like the top dog in the industry is dying off, you gotta make smaller scale projects. You gotta be more creative. You gotta really, really target that demographic that you want as your paying loyal customer. Because like I'm not gonna stop playing JRPGs anytime soon. Like, maybe at the future I'll make more YouTube videos that's just more like this, that talks more about this stuff. But I'm not gonna stop playing JRPGs anytime. I'm not gonna stop paying for those, because I know when I buy a JRPG, chances are it's the worst case scenario. It's okay. I know I've talked about JRPGs that I think are just okay or I'm disappointed, but it's not terrible. It's not like something I feel like I got ripped off. So I will continue to be playing and enjoying JRPGs, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
The only thing that they focus on is, well, user-generated content, retention, metrics, whatever it is. We have to think about the attention economy. No, you don't. You need to think about trying to make a better game. This is what I mean about these guys being focused on trying to extract a bigger result rather than just trying to make a better product. Funny thing is, better products sell. When you look across the industry, you look at a lot of these games that are just absolutely crushing it right now and also crushing our wallet as a result of it. The reason why these games are doing so well is because that is their only fixation. They only care about trying to make the best game that they probably can. They're not worried about trying to reach for somebody else's audience or somebody else's money. No, these guys realize that is a byproduct. You reach that goal by getting to it through the audience that you have and through the success that you find. It's all about just making a better product with no detours. The reason why a lot of these Eastern games have been doing so well over the past couple of years is I think it's because these guys just don't have the time to be able to worry about anything else. A lot of these companies that are coming in are either fresh to the industry or they're breaking into new genres or new markets. So what ends up happening is they don't really care about things like retention or anything like that. The only thing that they care about is whether or not they can get you to show up. They'll figure out everything else after the fact. So that's what they're building these games for. They're building these games so you at least show up. And I think that's kind of one of the most important lessons of all is that a lot of these companies
identify your core target audience and don't like make the money you're willing to put in for a video game that has to be set in stone, and it shouldn't be 100 million. Honestly, like that's like the only time it should reach that much is just like if you're like a flagship studio, you're like a AAA game studio. But other than that, it's like even then, I feel like 100 million is kind of overkill. Like I think it's too much money. Like even half of that's like it's like man, that's pretty expensive for a AAA video game. But anyway, it's like Western game devs, they blow too much money, target the wrong people, prioritize the wrong things, and worry way too much about monetization. Yeah,
got away from building games that people show up for. Kind of need us to be there first before you start trying to take our money, right? I don't know, man. I don't know if any of these guys are going to be able to learn from this. It's like a two-sided thing. Like, one, are they actually ever going to be able to learn from any of these issues? And then two, is there actually enough time for a lot of these guys to be able to do so? I think, after all the layoffs that we've seen over the past couple of years, I think that there's going to be something more drastic that's going to hit probably soon. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I don't know who it's all going to hit. It's probably
it wouldn't surprise me anymore if it's like, if Fortnite bared the brunt. It wouldn't surprise me if it's Apex Legends or Valorant or League of Legends. The big leagues. It wouldn't surprise me anymore if a game as big as Fortnite was hit by this. It's not like they were the number one when it comes to live service income, and they got hit this hard. It wouldn't surprise me if the others did too at this point.
Basically every single one of these companies, they've been taking so many financial losses, massive financial losses for a while, that it's too much to ignore. It's too much for their shareholders to ignore. And you're just going to see this mass displacement of talent. You're going to see people just all over the place. A ton of indie studios, probably some of these Eastern studios are also going to pick up some of these guys as well. It's not like there aren't talented developers at some of these Western companies. Just the problem is they just have horrible leadership, really some of the worst, most misguided leadership in the entire industry. So I don't know, man. Live service is definitely not the answer. That's not to say that live service games can't be good or that you can't make one. The problem is that when you think it's the answer to all of your problems, you need to have a better plan than that.
I would say even if it is, let's say you launched a live service today. Like, let's say it's kind of like Arc Raiders. It was really well received, or Helldivers too. Like you're gonna experience some success, sure, but you have to come to terms with the fact that it will decline eventually, and you're gonna have to cut back on like the expenses. Like it's gonna be trickier and trickier for the revenue to be greater than the expenses. So I think that's what's happening with Fortnite too, on top of people tuning out. Like, you can only keep a game running for so long. Which is why I think it's much more single player games, like, one time play, like when the development's finished, it's pretty much done. The after sales and the maintenance costs are very minimal. I still think that's the more sustainable model, so that at least when the games kind of sunset, or people are not really interested with the game anymore, at least all the expenses have already been incurred. It's not like you're continuing to keep spending on a dying game. So I think even if you do a successful live service game now, I wouldn't be surprised if they cannot sustain it for a year. I think that's what happened with Battlefield 6, actually. They were good for a couple of months, but then they couldn't keep the ball rolling. They couldn't, keep the lights on for a long time, or at least for the time that they intended it to be.
A lot of these guys don't. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of what's going on here. Are you celebrating the fall of a giant? I am, kind of, a little bit.
Me too.
Share it on social media. Share it with your friends. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitter. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay cool. Stay righteous. Stay safe. Peace.
Okay. Thank you. That's a legendary drops video. Okay. Here's the video. So yeah, shout out to Legendary Drops, making really good gaming videos. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty much the same talking points as me. I'm not sure if I missed something that you said, but yeah, let's see, where did I stop? Okay, I think, okay. Easter games are at fault because they're the only ones not chasing online live service. Yeah, that's true, right? Because like all the games I like from them are basically single player, hardly any multiplayer. Yeah, just keep making good games. It's really that simple, man. It's we've been telling them this for decades, and they refuse to listen. Now we gotta make all that money. We gotta make all that Fortnite money. It's the future, and it can keep our business afloat. It's just not true. Not true at all. Which Eastern game, Asian games have been proving time and time again. When are they going to blame the toxic fans for the failure of the live service games? Well, yeah, High Guard already did that, and I imagine Marathon might be doing that too. I don't know I don't fully know the discourse regarding Marathon, but yeah, they'll continue to blame everyone else, but except themselves. Simply stated, Eastern studios are to blame because they dare to be creative when think up think up the new games to make. Exactly. So it's like just focus on providing what uh people want. It's the same lessons that Hollywood doesn't want to learn. The same thing what Ryan Gosling said, it's not our obligation to buy and consume their game. It's them to provide us a product that we deem worthy of our money. And yeah, I think this year and the next, we're gonna see a lot of these stories. If again, I keep reiterating, if Fortnite, the golden child, the supposed king of this live service industry is falling apart, then the other ones will follow. Second place, or the second place game, third place game, whatever it may be, it's gonna follow. They've been blaming us already. Yes, they have been. Twerking AI cat goes. Yep, that's eating the market share of live service games. Absolutely. They updated Crimson Desert again to add things people. They they updated Crimson Desert again to add things people. Yeah, that thing, they work really fast. You gotta salute Pearl Abyss for working really fast to make changes and improvements. But a part of me also thinks I think they're working, around the clock. I think they're working 24/7, which is not good either. Servers are probably more expensive too because of yeah, that's true. That's a hidden cost too of maintenance because of it's more expensive to get the parts to get the machines up running to maintain servers. Which is a funny snake eating its own tail situation. Yeah, exactly. And the funny part is they still don't realize it until they have to face the fact that they're about to shut down or they're insolvent. Does it have to go that far for them to realize it? Okay. Typo. I have an S9 Plus now. It's like 6 years old, and I play on it on my phone. Yeah, yeah. Also, the smartphone dilemma too. Like there's like you're only buying the latest smartphone right now to flex. It's not like in the early days of the smartphone where it's worth it to upgrade every 2 to 3 years. Right now, it's like you can have a phone for 5 to 6 years and it'll still be fine. Like the smartphones have also reached their saturation point. Just bring the peas and you'll draw in the Roblox color. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, Roblox excels in that, and like the team behind, the people running the game approve of that. Just like YouTube forcing down shorts in every user's throat. Yeah, YT is the place for longer content. They are so dumb. Yeah, it's like I have an extension on desktop that removes the shorts, and like whenever it pops up in my YouTube mobile, I say not interested in shorts, not interested in shorts. So I get most of the long form content videos. Steam by definition is not a monopoly. It's not. It's just that they provide the best service. Like it's just that no other marketplace can compete. Like everything we want as gamers, it's already there. So no point with the other platforms. I'm guessing Sweeney was grabbing user info to sell, besides trying to get people to buy games. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but she does get a lot of users for sure. She does get a lot of data. Don't put all your egos in one. Yeah, precisely. Epic bet too much on what do you call this? Fortnite, in my opinion. Like, you could have used that money to diversify to other games, in-house studios, well curated, developed games like Gears of War and stuff like that, but they didn't. Tim Sweeney chose the wrong things to invest those proceeds to, and now they're paying the price. Steam UI is much better. Yeah, definitely. I agree. I have lots of games on Epic, not played a single one yet. All of them. See, I imagine a lot of people do this. I do. A lot of people are doing that. Good night, melodic method. Yeah, have a good rest. Kitty sitting on the like let his kitty run around. But I mean, if it's for a while, it's fine. The cat will go off eventually. Bethesda's always been shadowed by Black Isle and B. I'm not sure what is BI, but Black Isle, yeah, that's an old dev team. But yeah, it's like since their IPs were from I forgot the name of the Fallout dev. I think it's Black Isle. I think it is. But yeah, and OG Elder Scrolls didn't used to be open world, so Bethesda's also kind of even back then kind of relied on old IP. But hey, they really became the pioneers of open world RPGs once upon a time. Now, not anymore. This is probably you're boring. The as meme. If Starfield came out years after Fallout 4, people would have liked it a lot more. Yeah, that's true. So, people expected a lot more already at that point when Starfield came out. Yes, the wages for game devs in the West isn't exactly high to begin with, unless you're making your own stuff and get lucky. Yeah, yeah. I know, especially compared to regular software programmers or software engineering. Like if you're getting into programming in college or studying programming, you might as well go to software engineering instead of developing games. That's another hurdle of the games industry. Like it's harder and you get paid less. So why would you go that route unless you really, really want to make a game? Bethesda used to be my favorite. I started noticing problems with Fallout 4. Yeah, same, same. I used to really like Bethesda too. Back in the Fallout 3 New Vegas, even though it's Obsidian and Skyrim days. But really, ever since after Skyrim, they really couldn't hold themselves to the same standard ever since. And even then, you have to work yourself to death. I think Stardew Valley is a damn near a masterpiece just because it was a single dev. But he hated that game by the time he was done with it. Yeah, I can imagine it's an insane grind. Game dev is. Look, I considered taking the route of game dev, but like when I found out how the daily crunch, the notorious crunch, and the pay and the volatility of the industry, it's like nah. I'll just enjoy playing games, not make them. Gotcha's outliving live service whether they like it or not. Yeah. Particularly, like yeah, it's because like DEI is a contributing factor why Western game devs can't go the gotcha service route because like gotcha thrives on the attractiveness of the female characters, and that means very, very anti-DEI designs. So they shot themselves on the foot too on that with regards to aesthetics being the source of your revenue as a model. So they can't do gotcha not because they can't do the gameplay. It's because they can't make the attractive characters. So yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, okay. I answered. It's kind of like Dynasty Wars or yeah, it kind of looks that way, but it plays very, very differently for sure. So I did cover Dynasty Warriors Origins in this channel and in my personal channels. And yeah, hi Lightsaber, if you are still there. I think you still are. But hello, yeah. Yeah, your target audience can't be for everyone. Yeah, that's exactly. That's which is what live service tried to do. And arguably, which is Crimson Desert trying to do, which yeah, it didn't, which I don't think that should be the lesson learned from the games industry. They shouldn't try to add up all these features. Some games can do that, but I don't think all games should be doing that. I think these game studios money laundering. Yeah, I agree. The same with Hollywood and movies. I think it's more rampant with Hollywood though, compared to a video game studio. I'm more inclined to believe it if it's a video game studio over a Hollywood movie. Yeah, like having DLC to buy when the game hasn't fully released it. Yeah, it's a lot of crazy business practices occurred ever since DLC became a thing. Fortnite Battle Royale needs more than one map. Oh, I never knew Fortnite had only one map for Battle Royale, so that's new to me. Yeah, you would think with all the money, well, the money Epic used to make, that it would be more than one map. A good story game can be played at any time. New players can experience the same game as people who bought it at launch. Yeah, that too. Like, and it's like for me, it's like whenever I buy a new game, which I know from one of my favorite dev teams, and it's for my favorite genres. I'm already on board. Half the battle for them for me to convince you to buy their game, they've already won. So it's like compared to like a live service game, which I know you have to commit so much time and so much energy that which I don't have anymore. Especially when I make YouTube videos when I go live, like right now, I don't have the time or the patience to play those kinds of games. I recently picked up Inquisitor Mart. Yeah, I have that. I have that game. It's a fun hack and slash, and actually going out their way to make sure people can still play all the seasons when they sunset. Yep, yep. I have that game. I bought it. I bought it for my Xbox like a couple of years ago. So, yeah, it's like fun game, and you can buy it for cheap nowadays. Like you can buy the Ultimate Edition for like 10 to $20. So yeah. And hey, Mars Monkey, how are you doing? Uh, I'm ashamed of my industry going proprietary. Do you mean electronics engineer? The corporatist ran us. Do you mean your company in particular or your industry? Yeah, monopolizing is never a good thing for the consumer. That's how I see it. But again, I don't have the full picture, so I'm not familiar with electronics engineering. So, but that's usually a bad thing when companies try to monopolize. It's usually inferior services, and people have no choice but to avail of yours. When I worked for Intel, things ran great. Yeah, it's like yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another issue with speaking of Crimson Desert. I believe they didn't want the Intel Arc GPUs. They didn't want to work on the Intel Arc GPU. I don't know why. I don't know why. What's the technicality because of that? But yeah, that's pretty weird. Like they don't. I don't know who's mainly at fault in that situation where they didn't support Intel Arc graphics GPUs. Bethesda always had buggy games, but usually good games. Yeah, that level of acceptance for Bethesda to develop buggy games kind of stopped after Skyrim when it was the gameplay wasn't even that good anymore. So ultimately, it's because gameplay is not great, which is why Bethesda kind of declined. I went to school for game design. I have friends that graduated. I've been living with roommates for 10 years because wages suck. Yeah, that's when I found out like the wages were crap and you know you can just get Thanos snapped out of your jobs. Like, nah, I'm just gonna. I think I'll stick to enjoying games, not making them. We took consumer obligation in consideration. Yeah, like I think it's gonna even be less so if it's gonna be more monopolized, which sucks. It really does. One of them worked on Fallout for funny and yeah, yeah. That's a relatively successful game, and even then, it's so yeah. Like despite the success of games, it's like the rank and file still don't get compensated. Nikkei, they even made girls who are a bit chubby and they're a hit. Yeah, exactly. It's like the West like confined themselves because of the DEI standards that they set themselves in. They put themselves in a cage unnecessarily. Like if High Guard were full of like hot chicks, like full of Scarlet, but even more attractive, it might have had a chance. And if it didn't cost that much money, I believe it cost them hundreds of millions. Like that's an absurd amount of money. So if it costed them a lot less and they just gooner baited that game with full of attractive characters, it might have had a chance. High Guard might have had a chance. No, they want us to build weapons, probably because of recent events, I suppose. They want to ramp up their military because of what's been happening recently. But anyway, that's outside my scope. I'm not a political commentator. Each season, yeah, that's not good. I think they should be. They're like 3,000 to 4,000 devs. You would think that they'd be able to make more than one map. As a JRPG fan, if the story is good enough, you'll finish that damn game. If you hate the combat by the end, yeah. It depends. It depends. Like I reviewed recently in this channel, Tales of Berseria. I couldn't power through the combat. I really didn't like the combat, and it's very clear to me that they skimped on the rendering of the cutscenes, in exchange for skits. So I couldn't finish Tales of Berseria. but I might pick it up again. But like it's it depends. I was able to finish Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined, but the gameplay for me, I feel like it was too padded out. And Code Vein 2, like I felt like the mechanics of some bosses were too cheap for me to finish the story. But I am making a video for Monster Hunter Stories 3, the full video. I did a preview video here. So yeah, but my thoughts of the final game are still the same. I like the game. I finished the game already yesterday, and I finished many of the optional quests. So I think I'll be prepping the video. It'll be ready by, if not this weekend, probably the next. So yeah, I strongly recommend, if you're looking for a turn-based JRPG, I would go for Monster Hunter Stories 3. Then yeah, I'm still waiting for Adventures of Elliot, which is coming out this June. So yeah, if you're looking for a JRPG right now, I would go for Monster Hunter Stories 3. As far as High Guard goes, they did the Gooner bait thing with Marvel Rivals. I never thought that the game could be successful, but here we are. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the East, they're not confined to the BlackRock standards, so they're at liberty to put attractive characters, and the West can't do that because they're hypocritical if they do.